Well, hello, fellow investors and traders. I'm LA Little, and this is your daily NeoTA wrap, where we take a look at these markets and we do it from a NeoClassical perspective. Each time we're asking ourselves one question, that is, what happened today, and what does it tell us about the coming ones? I do this show 4 times a week, every Monday through Thursday. It's broadcast at or before 10 o'clock Eastern Time. Archived on YouTube. It's under the channel LA Little. We had a bloodbath out here today. Nothing escaped. Everywhere you looked, it was down 2% on the Dow, 2.5% on the S&P, 3.5 on the Index and the NASDAQ. Russell almost 3.5 down. Asia was up overnight, but they're probably going to give it up tonight. Oil down again, almost back to that $30 on the WTI. The DAX ended lower, CAC slightly higher. Taiwan just down the board. It was a bloodbath, and there's not much happening out here that's good. You know, before I came on the air here, I was searching the charts, looking across the different time frames, flipping through all the various indexes, thinking that I might find something to hang our hat on, and there is nothing out here. Bearish engulfing today, big reversal. You know, last night the setup was to go higher. Now, if you remember I think it was about a week and a half ago, the setup was to go higher. That night, China crumbled. Everything went with it. And we said to ourselves, you know, something not quite right out here. The market didn't do what it was supposed to do. Well, today it was supposed to go higher as well. It did start higher. It was up almost 1% pre-market. But by the time we opened, it was up slightly, and then it started to give it up. Held a higher range until the oil inventory numbers came out. West Texas Intermediate plunged back towards 30, and the market just started down and just kept going down. And it was that way all day. So bearish engulfings, if we bring over the weekly chart, you're coming after the lows now, right? You've already got the move. You're close. Looks to me like it's going to try to get there. And if you pull the monthlies up as well, you know, the monthlies, those are the lows. Swing point low is not that far away anymore. 1820, you're sitting at 1890, 70 points away. And when you give up that many points in a day, you know, that's not that far to go. If we take a look at the NASDAQ, now up until now, the NASDAQ, the NDX, those have been the leaders. Today, they gave it up. They gave it up in a big way. Huge engulfing candles to the downside. And I didn't point it out on the other chart there with the S&P, but if you take a look at this, these are huge ABCD structures to the downside, right? From there, back up, slight pull back. Folks, I mean, we're talking about, if we do the numbers on them real quick, in this case it's 51.17. The low here was 45.73. That's 550 points or so. 550 points off of that takes you down to 42. 42. Let's see where 42 takes us. What's this number? 42. So it takes you to the lows. That's the kind of move that we have trying to take place now in these indexes. These are huge moves. There's nothing else that can be said about them. You got volume at the lows. Remember that was that flash crash type day on a Monday morning where you got up and everything was like way down. I remember Starbucks was down 30% at one point. Apple was down 20%. Well, here we come after those lows again. And it's kind of hard to believe, actually. NDX, same thing, big engulfing candle. You look at it here, you got the same thing going on with it. And you pull it back, that low is not that far from the all-time lows, or not all-time, but the recent lows where the swing point low sits. Russell, last night, the Russell was the question mark because the Russell actually had volume last night, even though it did an under-over. Remember, we talked about you had 2 of the 3 things you need, and that was also true the prior night with the NDX, right? You had 2 of the things you needed. You go down, you come back. Well, actually, this one's not that. What I was going to show you here is this over under, right? That little over and under, higher volume. You can't get back over it. You can't hold it. You get back underneath it to test it again, which is possible, you know, if you have more volume down there. And it just gives it up and goes down again. Now, the Russell is already broken, although it's, you know, it's too early to know yet. It's already broken on the monthly. You know, that low is 1040 on the Russell. We're trading at 1010. So that's 30 points under. That's 3% now underneath. We're still early enough in the month. You know, you've still got roughly half the month to trade. And at this point, you've already lost 11% this month alone. That's the kind of damage that's being done out here right now. And yes, these things are extended, but you know, things can get even more extended before you know it. 1296, let's do the ABC. That's about 210 or so. Take it off of there. That takes you down to 996, trading at 1010. 996, not that far to go. So ABCD structure almost completed now on the Russell. You have these huge ABCD structures on the others. You know, it's kind of hard to imagine, and I'm gonna pop back over here to the NDX. It's kind of hard to imagine the NDX is actually going to complete that ABCD structure. Actually, this one's a little different. This one has a higher one, right? I mean, you know, it's not as bad. In other words, you already had the ABCD structure here that completed. So you've actually got the completion on the NDX. It's the S&P that doesn't. Let me see if the NASDAQ did. So maybe there is a possibility of hope here. Yep, same thing on the NASDAQ. So both of these actually had ABCD structures that just completed. A little bit more than completed now with today's action. If this ends up being another one, of course, they can go farther. But I don't think they would go as far as what we saw there on the S&P. So that's the indexes here domestically. You look overseas, it's the same thing. There's just nothing escaped it today. It doesn't matter where you look. If you're looking on the sectors, if you're looking at the overseas markets, if you're looking anywhere, it's the same thing. DAX gets up, gets into the swing point low. That's a bearish retest regenerate, right? So it goes up, it tries to break into it. You know, and usually when you come up within 6 bars, you're not going to stop here. You're going to try to make it to the other side. Well, this one just barely got into it, gave it up. It's going to test these lows tomorrow, or at least it's going to try. Same thing on the CACs. If I look over at Hong Kong couldn't put anything together. A little small bump up and then just started to give it up again. Same thing with Shanghai. They went straight down last night. Just nothing in the overseas markets worth looking at. They all point down again tomorrow. Go over to the OX markets. You know, the currencies in some of these situations are just getting pounded. The yen wanting to try and break higher. Of course, that's going to put pressure on the Japanese market. If you look at the Canadian currency, this thing is just plummeting, volumes escalating. They have a announcement next Wednesday. Great Britain has one tomorrow. This thing has already done an ABCD down, held today. We'll see what they say tomorrow. The Australian currency is being pummeled as well. It's across the board in the currencies. Now the US dollar and the euro are holding fairly steady. They're not really doing much. And so I guess that's one positive that's out here. But as we said, oil is going for the lows again. Bonds all of a sudden are spiking back towards the highs, up almost a full % today. Silver, gold, got a little bit of a bid underneath the gold market, silver as well. Then we go over to the junk bonds with WTI trying to break 30. The bond market's starting to break down again. It's underneath the swing point low on the daily. On the weekly, it's under the lows, and on the monthly, it's trying to extend. If you look at the high quality corporate bonds, you know, they're not nearly in the same shape. They're holding up, but the junk side of the house is really starting to get hit as well. Folks, it's not often you get this kind of a stretch and you get situations to where what should happen doesn't happen. Those situations call for a lot more caution. If you're not being cautious with this market, you're asking for trouble. This market has the potential to sell down hard and fast. It's already selling down hard and fast, and it's going to at a very soon interval here, it's going to start forcing liquidation. In other words, you're going to start seeing margin calls, forced liquidation. If that happens, you're going to get even more pressure to push this even lower than it should go. And then there's going to be, the bargain bin's going to be filled, and you can kind of dive in and take a big swath of stuff for a heck of a snapper rally back the other side. But right now, there's nothing in the cards tonight that tells me this is going up tomorrow. It certainly is going to depend on what happens in Europe, it appears to me. If Europe starts breaking out the lows and we gap down tomorrow, then we're going to see, do the sellers really have to start throwing the babies out with the bathwater? That's the way it looks tonight. I wish I had something better to tell you, but that's the way it looks. There's not much out here to hang your hat on. A few minor things we discovered as we were looking at the charts, those ABCDs down on the NDX and the NASDAQ. But outside of that, there's not much else out there to tell you we're even close to putting in a bottom yet. Have a great one. I'll see you tomorrow, and we'll pick it up there. Good night.